Well, I'd like to welcome our third presenter today on our day-long sports business and sports marketing edition of Face to Face, Matt Sanchez from the Utah Jazz. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Happy
I
to be here.
appreciate you joining us. Matt is involved in an area of marketing that it's pretty new to those of us at the high school level in particular, but it's the social media end and also the digital end where Matt's responsible as the content marketing manager. That's so new that most of our students probably aren't even aware of what content marketing is and what there is to manage it. So I'm going to get out of the way, and you'll only have to tell us about any bizarre experiences in your stint at MTV if you choose to. That's totally optional. I'm going to back out of the way and let you begin by telling us a little bit about how you got where you're at, a little
Okay.
background, what you do with the Jazz, and then what's fun happening in this whole area. Then.
Okay, great. Thanks again for having me. I'm happy to be here. I once was in a sports marketing class back in high school, and I know stuff like this is very valuable. A little bit about me, like you said, my name is Matt Sanchez. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon. Went to the University of Utah. Mass communication journalism major was my major. Um, a little bit about my work history. I started while I was in high school, actually, an internship at a local sports TV station back in Portland. That kind of opened my eyes to the world of sports. Initially, I wanted to be kind of a sports news guy, a sports center anchor. That was my goal. And when I got into college at the University of Utah, I did several other internships. A lot of people always joke that I was kind of a career intern for a little while because I did so many internships through college. Um, but I believe that internships are kind of the key to success, and I'll kind of go into a little bit more about that. I interned locally in Salt Lake at a KSL, another radio station, at the time it was 1320 KFan, which was the home of the Jazz. And then I did an internship at MTV in New York City, which was a great. It was actually in media. I have some funny stories that I'll try to get into there. And then I got an internship with the Jazz, and at that time, when I got my internship with the Jazz, it kind of opened my eyes to the world of sports and actually working with a team and organization, being in that environment, and I kind of forewent my journalism background to work for sports. And initially, after I graduated, I took a job with the Jazz in fan relations, which, if you're not familiar, fan relations is it's kind of on the sales side, the ticketing side, but more or less they take care of season ticket holders, so to speak. And I did that for about a year. It wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do, but it was a great opportunity to be part of the Jazz full time. Job opened up. It was what I do now as the content marketing manager. It went hand in hand with my journalism background, my new media background, and I've been doing this particular position for about a year. So a little bit about what I do for the Jazz. Sorry, I'm not really going brief. But I handle all of the social media, which obviously is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, all of the content that we do, the strategic content that we do. I also do a lot of the original content. So if you follow the Jazz on any of those platforms, we have a lot of original content and coaches in the form of videos or stories or just kind of more interactive features. It's a great job. The world of digital marketing, new media is growing at a rapid rate, especially in the sports world, because as the leagues and the teams see success in digital marketing, they're adding more and more positions. There's room for just enormous growth. So that's a little bit about me and what I do, currently for the Jazz, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, tell me, when you talk about creating original content, I mean, you're not making up stats. What kind of things do you post on Facebook, or what kind of things do you tweet out for the Jazz?
So when I talk about original content, it's more of the interactive. So think of reality TV, so to speak. And what's great about social media when you tie into our original content with players and with the team is the interaction. So we have fan interaction, whether it be in the form of questions or we go and take a player out to meet, the public. I went on a week-long trip with Jazz forward Derek Favors, up-and-coming star, this past summer, and a lot of it was centered around social media. Tell people where we are, where we're going. People kind of flock to that specific location, and it's all about not necessarily we're doing this for sales, but it's about building that fan base, building a relationship. People, when players get out there and interact and you see their personal side, they're more likely to become a fan of that player, of that team. So it's almost a lot of grassroots efforts as far as social media goes and getting the people, the public, to love, so to speak, the team.
So when you talk about getting to know the personality, that also seems like one of the more dangerous parts of social media, is that you get a player that goes rogue on you and lets his personality maybe come out in a bad situation. Do you play any role in trying to manage and how players also use the media?
We do. It is kind of a tricky, topic, so to speak, because, it's their own personal social media. But we've had a couple of instances this past summer with a player. Nothing, terribly negative, but they were brand new to Twitter, brand new to social media, and they posted, things that they probably shouldn't be talking about, pictures they shouldn't be talking about, so we kind of just had to take them aside and say, probably not the best idea. Try to stick to these topics. It is your own personal platform, but try to be a little more cautious of what you're doing. So we don't necessarily control their own personal, Twitter accounts, Facebook pages, but we're definitely there to, advise and to, kind of monitor those.
What kind of Facebook posts or tweets get the most fan engagement, the most retweets, the most likes, the most, I guess engagements where I want to stick with?
Yeah, it's funny. When the team is doing well, and we're in a brand new season here with the Jazz, 8 games in, that's kind of the cure-all. People are so involved when the team is winning. Last week we beat the Lakers, which any Jazz fans out there, we're not Laker fans at all. So just simply putting on Facebook or tweeting out, the Jazz beat the Lakers, that gets enormous buzz. But as far as original or creative content, it's all about the players. The Jazz, if you follow the Jazz on Facebook, we can put stuff out about tickets or, special offers. Those are well received, but anytime we have anything about a player, I'm doing a series, and our first episode is going to come out today, actually. It's called The Rookie. Our rookie on the team is Kevin Murphy. Kind of well known if you're a Jazz fan, but little known if you're not. And it's just kind of each episode will be about 5 to 6 minutes. And that type of content, anytime that you're dealing with a player, that's what kind of spreads and almost becomes viral, and that's kind of what we go for. That's kind of why I'm here, to do that original content, because anytime a player is involved, then people kind of flock to that.
Does the NBA provide any guidelines or, who are we kidding? It's the NBA. Restrictions on how you can use social media as a team? I know they can't tell players specifically outside of the game what they can do, but what kind of guidelines or regulations does the NBA drop down?
The NBA is very good. The NBA at maintaining and protecting their business. Some specific guidelines that we have for social media involve, we don't have sponsored tweets. We're not allowed to say such and such type of promotion sponsored by this person, because then it just turns into advertising. And the NBA is very careful about not doing anything social media wise that just turns into advertising, because it's supposed to be fan engagement. So that's one of the bigger guidelines that we have that kind of come up on a daily basis. We have people openly saying, hey, we'll pay for this, but it's one of those things that we can't do. And in a lot of ways we don't necessarily want to do it, because if you're following the Jazz on Twitter, you don't want to see that. You want to see what you're there to see, stats, or you're there to see original content, or stuff about the team, not necessarily something that's sponsored. So I think the NBA, any kind of restrictions they have, they're a bunch of smart people at the league office and they go into very deeply what social media should be, and it's for basically the fans, and that's, we adhere to that definitely here at the Jazz.
No, I think that now correct me if I'm wrong on this, but obviously the NBA is a revenue-focused league. They want to I mean, they're talking about ads on uniforms coming up. I mean, that comes up every couple of years. So they're not afraid of advertising. But what you're telling me, I believe, is that they're smart enough to perceive that this platform wouldn't do the advertisers much good because it would turn off the fan more than it would bring them in.
Exactly. That's exactly right. We see all the time. Social media is it's so new to a lot of people. If you want advertisements or whatnot, you're going to watch TV or you're going to listen to the radio. That people that are so heavily into social media that follow the Jazz on a daily basis, they're not there for advertising. It's kind of funny. It's almost like I mentioned the phrase grassroots, and we try to get people at the most simple level of fanhood, and if they inherently want or like a player or a team, they're going to buy their jersey, they're going to come to the game, they're going to buy tickets. Like you said, we're here to, the Jazz is a business. We're here to make money. The NBA is a business. They're to make money. But in some ways, social media, it's not the traditional advertising, sales doesn't go hand in hand. It's more about fan interaction, fans, genuinely wanting to become a fan of the team, go to games, not just because they see an advertisement to go to a game.
So if I'm the bean counter for the Jazz or any other NBA team, what do you tell me to justify your job? Because you're not directly creating revenue. Obviously, there's a hope of some indirect. How do you measure at the end of the year, did Matt do his job?
That's a great question. That's what we look at a daily basis. We have a lot of analytics that go into our social media, into our website, in the terms of likes, page views, click-throughs, how long you're on the website. And obviously on the UtahJazz.com there are areas for advertising, sponsorship type of things, but it is one of those tricky things. It's new. We can justify, hey, last year we had, 2 million likes on this specific subject. This year, with this increased, we've increased our effort to have more content. We've had, double that many likes. So it is tough when you're just going after, revenue, because when the team's playing well, I'm sure you've been to Jazz games, the arena's sold out. So that kind of trumps everything. And if I have an amazing original content piece, that doesn't necessarily lead to a sold-out arena, but it does help track how many fans we're gaining. We get more than a couple thousand new Twitter followers a day, or people liking us on Facebook, and if we build that fan base from the ground up, then that's ultimately what we can report on.
Well, I think that whole interactive end, whether it's social media or just other digital methods, deepens the fan loyalty. As you said earlier, getting to know their personality and know them. If nothing else is going on and I'm a casual fan, I might go to the game. But when you have that interaction, and it can be strong, where you start pushing other things out of the way to turn it on or listen to it, watch it, go to it, and that's a whole different deal there.
Yeah, it's amazing. About 2 weeks ago or so, before the season started, we took the players out to local malls in the area. If you go to the Jazz website, I created a video about the whole day, and we took players out to the mall, not to sign autographs, not to just stand there at a table, but more or less just walk through the mall and just interact with fans. And the mall knew we were going, but it wasn't advertised. It was supposed to be just this, wow, the Jazz are here, this is amazing. And there's a really cool story of this family that Mo Williams, he's our point guard, he went to the University of Alabama, and right when we're walking in the mall, he sees this gentleman that's wearing a University of Georgia hat. And naturally, Alabama, Georgia, they're not, friendly. So Mo, he's like, he kind of gives the guy a hard time, and he's like, I need to get you a new hat. So Mo takes it upon himself to go and not just pick out a hat, but he buys the gentleman a hat. It's a Jazz hat. And afterward, I talked to this guy, and he says, wow, that was that was amazing because you see these players on television. They seem like they're just kind of, not even, human in some ways. They're just these elite athletes. But when we show that they're just normal people and they have the same kind of personalities and same attitudes that we as, normal people have, it really turns fans on to, wow, I really like this guy. And when I show that video or others that are similar to it to other people, they say, wow, I had no idea Mo was this friendly, Mo was this giving. And, I get told all the time that leads people to want to buy his jersey.
Sure.
So that kind of thing goes a long way when you show players and how they are in their personal life.
Are you does the Jazz? You can either address this as a Jazz specific or NBA in general. Are they starting to put up or shut up in terms of the respect for social and digital media by giving you a bigger chunk of the budget? How kind are they in that area?
Well, it varies team to team. We see some teams that have a staff of upwards of 15 people that are dedicated to their digital side, to their social side. The Jazz are, we're kind of in the middle, so to speak, in terms of people on the team. But with our budget, it is growing. When I first started, I had a flip video camera. And those are, they're not bad, but they don't really do the trick. And when I started, I said, this is our only camera. And they said, yeah, it's been good for us for now. And immediately I kind of made the case for why we need better equipment, why we need this and this. And it's paid huge dividends. That story on Mo Williams, I would never been able to have captured that with a flip camera. So I think as teams individually see the benefit of social media, there is more and more of a budget or allocation of funds for these departments.
Would you dare take a guess on the typical NBA team? What percentage of their marketing budget is dedicated to digital and social?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, for a team like the Jazz, it's definitely a big chunk, and it's like I said, it's growing. A couple of years ago, it was basically nothing.
Sure.
So when you see what it is today, it's eventually it's gonna. I think it'll overtake traditional marketing or traditional media because of the way that it is growing, the way that people today, your students, my friends, myself, we're more likely to go to Twitter than to just turn on the television. So it's growing and growing and growing, and I believe eventually it's going to overtake, normal marketing or advertising.
How do you use Twitter differently than you use Facebook, differently than you use YouTube or Google Plus or Pinterest or whatever format?
So, great question. We use Twitter primarily for information. I guess that's kind of what Twitter's all about. The Jazz have a very dedicated Twitter following. We have people that they tweet about the Jazz all day long, every day, whether it be in the off season or not. So primarily what we put on Twitter is, game information. If this player is hurt today, if we also tweet live during games. A lot of people can't catch a game on the TV or the radio, so they follow us on Twitter. So a lot of Twitter, we use Twitter more than say Facebook or Google Plus. Obviously, YouTube that's where you can find all of our videos, all of the original content that I create or my team creates. We put on YouTube. It's a great platform to show that. Instagram obviously is a little more new, photo based, but we've had a great response from Instagram. We started our Instagram account less than a year ago, and we have well over, I believe it's up to, I can check my phone to see, but it's ever increasing as far as how many people follow us on Instagram. It's such an easy platform because it's just photo based. Facebook, we do a lot of the same type of things as Twitter, but it can be more interactive. We do some contests. We have all sorts of contests going on. Enter here, best comment wins, that type of thing. So Facebook's a little more interactive if we want to go, and engage with fans, where Twitter is a lot, not necessarily all news-based, but it's a lot of just information. If you want something easily and quick, go to Twitter. So that's kind of how we spread it out, but there are some overlaps as well.
So is there yourself? Is there literally somebody, because maybe I want this job, that sits in the stands at a game, and their primary, maybe not exclusive, but primary job is to take out their smartphone and tweet things out?
There is. That is me. I do that probably half the time.
You do
And
know right now that like 99% of all NBA fans or Jazz fans want your job with their team. You know that part of it at least.
yeah, it's a great part. I mean, um, now luckily for me, I have a nice little station where I can have my computer. A little easier to tweet from a computer than the phone. Um, but yeah, it's a great part of the job. Sit there, watch the game, interact with fans. It is a little different than just normal watching of the game because you want to keep track of the stats and if there's a 12-0 run or if there's this and that. But yeah, that's not my sole focus on game nights, but it's a huge part and it's totally justified as fans. Fans want that. So.
One of my students, Josh, is a major Jazz fan, but he's got a good question. It's easy for him to see all these things because he's already, he's bought in. How do you use social media to reach out to people who might be not necessarily not a fan, but less enthusiastic of a fan?
Okay. Great question. Again, there's a lot of, in Utah specifically, and other places, people are genuinely Jazz fans. Whether you're kind of like me on this end of the spectrum of I can't live without the Jazz, or there's people on the other side that are, yeah, I like the Jazz, whatever, but, I don't really care that much. So as far as using social to interact with people that are kind of just, yeah, the Jazz are fine. Again, it goes to using our team, showing our team, our coaches, our players, that more personal side. I use the phrase fighting the battle, but it's not really a battle. But every day I propose new ideas for original content to my boss and so forth, and it's for things just like that. My wife, she's a big Jazz fan, but her sister might not be. She kind of just casually follows it. Well, what would you want? I kind of ask. We send out through social media. What do you want? We go to fans a lot of times. That's where we use Facebook because it's more of interactive. What do you want? Do you want to see a player working out? Do you want to see a player interacting with fans at a mall? Do you want to see a player on the road and see their routine? So for the most part, we go to fans to kind of ask what they're going for. What do you want to see? And then we try to be creative ourselves and try to do original content. We can't do the same thing over and over, so it is kind of a little battle to gain fans, but that's kind of what I think my sole job is about.
Unless you're unique in the sports field, you've had something that's blown up on you, something that just didn't go like you wanted it to. Can you, without going through too much pain and agony, can you share something in the past that was a social media idea that really didn't work out so well?
Yeah, I have a couple experiences. One with the Jazz, one when I was at MTV. With the Jazz, because social media is instant. It's instantaneous. When you put something out there, you can't go back. On the flip side, if you're recording and I'm doing a video, I can always edit, take that out. But on social media, once you put it out there, the world sees it. Even if you try to delete it, someone's seen it, someone's screenshot, captured it. So we had an instance, and I won't go into too much detail, but about a year ago where we had our new Jazz app for the iPhone. It's a great app if you're a Jazz fan. It's kind of a must-have. But we were offering tickets to the first, I believe it was 50 people that signed up for it. Well, in turn, instead of sending an email to 50 people, we sent it out to everybody that signed up for it, not just the first 50. So we had, 50,000 people that were, okay, I signed up, where's my tickets? I got notification that I was going to get tickets. And the thing is, if it was just a normal, like traditional media, whether that's a TV or newspaper, and you kind of make an error like that, well, you can kind of just go back because a newspaper is a daily thing, where social media is an all-day thing. So that was kind of an error on our part, where we sent it out to everybody instead of just 50 people. and people, some people weren't too thrilled with that, but that's just the world
I had
of
some of them in my class, by the way.
nice. I'll be sending you some jazz stuff to your class. And one of the MTVs I had, which was a little scary just because of the content. We were at the MTV Movie Awards, no, it was the VMAs. I apologize, not the movies, it was the VMAs. And it was this was a couple years ago, that Lady Gaga wore her infamous meat dress, where her dress was made out of meat, right? And we had her live tweeting from our MTV account. And, she was there with people, kind of monitoring what she's saying. But things get out, she might tweet something out real fast that might have some language or something that MTV doesn't want to have happen. It was more of a platform for fans just to ask her, nice, random, easy questions. But she kind of took it as her platform. She has her own Twitter account. So that was, a little bit rough. But, that's also when we have Jazz players take over the Jazz Twitter account. And, we could take that risk every time we do it. But I guess it's just, my job and whoever's kind of managing that to make sure that the person, whether it be an athlete or whoever, knows why they're there. This isn't their own personal outlet to vent or whatnot. But there's definitely, just going back to the immediacy of social media, how it just goes out right away. It can always be scary. Every time I send out a tweet, I recheck, I spell check that thing about 10 times, because if you don't, then you could be in trouble.
Yeah, it's a whole different world when it's your 27 friends or your followers versus thousands and thousands of fans.
Exactly, yeah.
If we were talking to somebody in the media 25, 10, maybe even 5 years ago, they would not have anticipated the changes in the so-called traditional media of newspaper, radio, TV. They probably wouldn't have anticipated what's happening with social media. So what I'm asking is probably not fair, but what do you see 5 years down the line with social media in general, or even your job specifically?
That's a great question. When I started college, like I said, I wanted to be a writer, a TV guy. Well, that's still around. Obviously we have guys on, TV or women on TV, but it kind of is not, the jobs aren't as open, especially with traditional news writing. So, I think about it all the time. What will social media turn into? And, it's kind of hard to put your finger on, but I think, in my opinion, I think it's just going to become more and more interactive. It's going to become more accessible. I think instead of having, there's going to be more things like this, Google Hangouts. I think there's going to be more just interaction in general with players, more accessibility to players, when you're talking about a sports team, that is. And I think you're going to, like I said before, you're going to see more of the traditional media, traditional marketing kind of going by the wayside more than it is now. And new media, digital marketing, social media is going to become the thing, where that's where everybody goes to, whether it's the CEO that's not necessarily familiar with it. Well, in 5 years, they're going to be very familiar with it, because that's where everything is now. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint, what invention or what website or what new platform will be around in 5 years, but I just believe it'll keep increasing the interactivity with players and with teams to fans, just ever growing.
The Jazz not the Jazz, pardon me, but the NBA seems to do a pretty admirable job of trying to attract and connect with the female fan. So the next question with social media has got to be, are the Jazz on Pinterest?
The Jazz are on Pinterest.
And do you look at it as a legitimate? I mean, it's let's face it, it's like 99% female. Do you use that as a legitimate way to go after that female fan?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the Jazz particularly, if we're going to invest the time into creating a Pinterest account and keeping it up to date, it's for a reason. And I think the female, demographic is huge, whether it be in sports or business. And yeah, the Jazz are genuinely interested in all social media outlets. If something comes out tomorrow, the Jazz are going to be all over it. So, although I might not be the biggest Pinterest guy in my free time or my personal life, when I'm at work, I'm all about it. Yeah.
What I'm a 17-year-old high school student, and I want to get an internship, or I want my foot in the door with the Jazz, and I
Yeah.
love social media. What is it realistically that a kid could come down and offer in the realm of social media to the Jazz to convince you or your superiors to say, hey, let's put the kid on the payroll or put him on a free internship, but he's got
Yeah.
something for us. What would that be?
You know what? First of all, before I answer that, I'll say, to any students listening or that may watch, internships are huge. I would not be where I am right now without the internships I did. Obviously, you learn business, you learn what to do, how to do it, but you gain friendships, you gain networking, you gain connections. But as far as the Jazz go, I get people all the time that want to become my intern, want to become an intern here at the Jazz. Like I was just a few years ago, I was just an intern here, and I think it's more or less determination. It took me probably over a year to get an internship, but I think if you want it, that's kind of like that classic cliche. But more specifically, what could somebody offer me? I think just the willingness to do whatever it takes. Yeah, sitting and meeting players is glamorous, but there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily glamorous. And it's that I'll do whatever it takes. I want this. I have a passion. You can tell when someone actually has that deep drive, that that fire within, so to speak, that they want it, or someone's just kind of giving you, they just want a job, or they think it's cool to hang out with players and whatnot. So I think more than anything, it's just the drive to want to succeed and want to be a part of it and do whatever it takes for the benefit of the team. So that's kind of what I look for. Naturally, you want to have somebody that's a fan, that's excited, enthused, but someone that genuinely wants to be there and not just for the glamour parts.
With all respect to your current employer and knowing that you have no desire to be unemployed, do you have a dream job that's different from what you're at? If you could write your own ticket to do anything for a living, and this comes from Nat, who's in his particular class, they're talking about dreams and goals, so that's why this comes up. Write your own job description. What would it be?
Well, if we're talking dream job, I'm a big NBA guy, so I would stick with the NBA. I wouldn't mind being a commissioner.
There you go.
So, if we're thinking big, let's think big.
So you just want a lot of people to hate you. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe I would change the trend and be the first commissioner that people genuinely love. So
there you go.
But yeah, I always think the key is to always strive to want to become something bigger and better. I might have a job now that a lot of people want or whatnot, but I think one key of something that's considered great, or someone that is just that drive to want to keep going. And yeah, so who knows what my future may hold. Maybe I'll be the commissioner. Maybe I'll be here, which I'm a Jazz fan. This is a great job because I have that love for the Jazz, but I just think the key is to just keep wanting to not be, to kind of break out of the status quo, to not be content with where you're at.
In the interest of, hedging my bet, we want to reserve the first hangout with you when you're commissioner.
Done. This is done.
That would. Boy, I was just going somewhere else with a question. Totally lost it. Oh, are there ever 2 days that are the same in your job?
Yeah. With a professional sports team, there's always an off season, and there's always something to do, always something going on. Whether with the Jazz, in the summertime, there's the draft, preparing for the draft, then summer league, and then we kind of work our efforts towards training camp and preseason. So there's always something to work towards. But as soon as the season ends, it's almost like a decompression, so to speak. You kind of just like unwind, see what worked for the season, see what didn't work, kind of start brainstorming new ideas. But yeah, with any job, whether you're this, let's say Al Jefferson or whoever, you're a professional athlete or not, there's always going to be days where they're kind of the same. It's not, like I said, it's not all glamour. Like I'm not on the road with the players all the time. So there's definitely things, and that's where you really see who wants to be here, because it's not all just, roses.
Okay, I've got two questions to finish off with. One is, what has been the best experience you've had that's helped you prepare for this job?
Okay. Well, I mean, I kind of keep going back to the internship thing. Um, yeah, if you're active on social media in your personal life, you kind of have an understanding of what it is, how to work it, what it's used for. But when you actually dive in and that's kind of your job, whether you're an intern or not, that's where you see kind of not just how to do things, but the strategies behind. Why did you send out this tweet? Why did you put this Facebook post at this time of day? So there's a lot of things that prepare me for this particular job. And this particular job, I don't know if I would actually have gotten it if I didn't have that journalism background. That was kind of what I did in college. And, that comfortable being able to interview people, being comfortable around whoever. So I would just say, it's a lot of things, but preparation, and that's kind of what internships are, is
Sure.
they prepare you for what you want to do. And, I would start in high school, definitely.
Okay, here's your last shot. I teach a social media marketing class. I also teach a sports marketing class. I need a day off. You come in and sub for me. You can teach whatever you want. You've got 90 minutes in one of those classes. What do you focus on?
I would focus on creativity. Social media, so much of the time today is a lot of the same type of things, whether you follow the Jazz or another team or if you're an NFL fan, it's kind of a lot of things are the same, so to speak. I would just say try to think outside the box, what hasn't been done. Come up with new creative ideas, because that's ultimately what will make you stand out, what will kind of drive the field forward. So I kind of just emphasize creativity. That's kind of what I focus on a lot. Every day I have a little brainstorm session, and what's out there, what's being done, and what could we do new. So I think when I come to Davis High and teach, it's going to be a little bit about how to be creative and how to think outside the box, probably.
Well, we'll hook up off the air to make that specific date. In all seriousness, thanks so much, Matt. I don't know if everybody realizes you're pitch hitting at the last second here, and I couldn't be more pleased with the information you brought us in this our third segment today. For those who are joining us, we encourage them to come back for our fourth segment. That's Patrick Walker of 3 Point Productions. He has a little bit by the title, you might think he has a little bit of time spent in basketball as well, but also beyond that. So we appreciate your time. We appreciate you being so open about what you do. This is a vehicle that lets us as teachers and kids, students as well, know things that we really can't just pick up by grabbing a magazine or even surfing the internet. So we appreciate the effort.
Of course, I'm happy anytime.
All right, well, be careful because we'll take you up on that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.